So it looks like the impact of Sergio Conceição has not just been on the players, it's been on the management as well. A coach that has taught his players to come back late in a match to force a win has now influenced the management to come back late in the transfer market to force some serious moves. Joao Felix, Santiago Giménez, Fikayo Tomori leaving, Alvaro Morata already on his way out. Some of these deals are not just unexpected, but outright shocking. And also discuss the rumblings around coach Sergio Conceição and how some players, some star players like Theo Hernandez and Christian Pulisic are reportedly having a hard time getting along with his coach. Kicking off with the profile of Joao Felix. Now, Joao Felix is a player that has been linked to Milan in the past, but these links, the most recent ones, these seem to be the most likely to actually come true. The agent of Joao Felix, Gimenez, also happens to be the agent of Milan's coach, Sergio Conceição. So there's a little bit of that connection. There have been reports that he's actually in Milan negotiating a potential 6-month loan deal. This has been reported by Nicola Schira and other top journalists. The profile of Joao Felix is a little bit, confusing one or unclear one, let's just say, because he's been a bit of an in and out favor sort of player from different clubs now. He made a move from Atletico Madrid, went on loan to Chelsea. He then went back to Atletico Madrid, made a loan move to Barcelona. Barcelona time was a little bit better. He then went back to Atletico Madrid and made a permanent move 5 months back to Chelsea in a pretty hefty, I think 50 million euro plus deal with a permanent move to the Premier League. But 5 months later, the guy's sort of out of favor. The coach, Enzo Maresca, has been favoring Cole Palmer to sort of, occupy that space that Felix would like to play in. And because of the performances of Palmer, Felix is sort of just waiting around trying to get, enough playtime. And even when he has gotten playtime, it hasn't been the most effective. I think in the Premier League itself, he's played about 12 matches. He's only scored 1 goal. He's only assisted 1 goal. So pretty much he's at a club where he's not getting the right type of playtime where he can truly express himself. I think he's only started about 3 matches this season. And for that reason, it seems like he wants to leave the club. He wants to make a loan move somewhere else where he gets consistent amount of playtime. Right now, it looks like a potential 6-month loan deal. He does like to play in that central attacking midfield role. He can also play as a striker. He can also play as a left winger. So there's a good chance that if Joao Felix is to come to Milan, Noah Okafor is likely going to leave because he's probably going to be the backup for Rafael on the left wing. And also he's a versatile player, so he can also play as that second striker, playing as a number 10 for Milan. The only concern that I have about this move is that Milan, in my opinion, they shouldn't just get a dry loan. I think when you get the potential of getting a player of a quality of Joao Felix, I believe his idol also in the past he's talked about has been Ricky Kaká. So this is a player who probably has an emotional sentiment towards joining Milan to playing for a former club of one of his idols. But to me, that loan move, a dry loan move would be the only issue. I think there should be an option to buy the player out. They should look at a number that they can actually get the guy on for a permanent deal. You don't really want to do favors to other top clubs by bringing the players on, improving their form, improving their quality, and then sending them back there. I think Milan must focus on trying to turn this into a loan plus an option to buy the player at the end of the season. But from the reports that I'm reading right now, the fact that Joao Felix's agent is already in Milan, the negotiations are going through, it tells me that his loan move to Milan, we don't know if it's going to turn into an option or an obligation attached to it, but the loan move seems pretty much real. I think there's a very, very good chance of this happening. Which brings us to Santiago Gimenez. Now, this Gimenez deal, my goodness. At this point in time, I think this is a done deal, but I think it's still important to talk about how this deal sort of has progressed over time. Every day you seem like there's something that is different happening. Yesterday, we're hearing reports that, it's done deal. He's going to be coming for his medical on I think Friday afternoon, it was being said. Friday obviously passed. There was no medical that happened. In the past, it had been said that Milan made an offer around 30 million euros. Feyenoord was looking for a deal around 38 to 40 million. So Milan was a little bit off from that evaluation. However, there was some report that came out a few days later that said that Milan only made an offer for 20 million euros, that too in 4 different installments of 5 million euros each for a top level striker. Now, for me, I never bought into those reports. I feel like a lot of those reports were just that transfer market madness, and because there's already a portion of the Milan fan base that doesn't like this management, it was just adding fuel to the fire of that dislike towards the management by throwing out those numbers. They were never confirmed by any of the the top guys, like Matteo Moretto, not by Nicolo Schira, not by Fabrizio Romano. Nobody said that $20 million deal. So for me, I never really bought into that. However, it looks like the latest amount that Milan has offered is reportedly somewhere around 32 million euros. There is a bonus reportedly attached to that offer as well. As I had mentioned in my first video that I made about Santiago Giménez, that I believe a deal somewhere around 35 million euros plus bonuses is probably what's going to, get this over the line. He already has a contract that he's agreed with Milan. I believe it's a 2.5-year deal, or at least a deal till 2028. He's going to be making about 2.2 million euros a season. And there's reportedly also an additional option to extend it till 2029. And now there are also additions that a future sale percentage will also be added to the deal itself. I think the thing that we have to remember with Gimenez is that it seems like Feyenoord was trying to convince him to stay at the club. It doesn't look like this is the place that he wants to stay at any longer. Not because necessarily of any dislike, but I think he just doesn't want to turn down another big move in his career. He already turned down a big move in summer of 2024. I think he sees an opportunity to be able to move to a big club, and he wants to take on that. And even if you look at it from Feyenoord's perspective, keep in mind, guys, they signed him for 6 million euros. 6 million euros. So when you get an offer around that 35 million euro mark, you just can't help but strongly consider that. That's almost 6 times the value of the player that you bought him for. A lot of it also comes from the fact that the player really wants to make this move and he's pushing to make this move. It has been reported by some journalists like Sasha Tavolieri, who was saying that the deal is actually done. He said that the deal was actually done yesterday, and that the player is already going to be moving over the weekend. Santiago Giménez, I think this is a very obvious one. I think it's just about finding the right number. As I had said in the previous video, Feyenoord is willing to sell the player at the right price. The player wants to move. The fans obviously want him. It's just the management hitting that number. And I believe this deal is real. This player might just be playing for Milan against his former club in the first round of, the knockout round of the Champions League. A part of me still wants to see him land in Milan and actually take his medical and, pass his medical. We remember what happened with Noah Okafor going to Leipzig and failing his medical before I truly celebrate. But this very much seems real. This very much seems to be a done deal. And then there's the stories around Fikayo Tomori. Now, this one probably surprised me, probably surprised a few Milan fans too, because we have seen a downtick in the form of Fikayo Tomori. There's no question about that, but a potential sale happening in January, I don't really expect that. There have been some reports about a move potentially to Aston Villa, but it sounds like the links that are being reported now for his move to Tottenham seems the most legit ones. The figures, however, have been a little bit, there's been some discrepancy around that. Di Marzio said that it's a 25 million euro deal plus 5 million in bonuses. Matteo Moretto came out and explicitly said that there's nothing happening around the 30 million euro mark for this player. I think Milan back in the day, how much did they sign Tomori for? I actually didn't look it up. I think it was somewhere around that 26 to 28 million euro mark under Maldini. So really getting this player to come to the club, be a pretty good center back for the first, I would say 75% of his time at Milan, winning a trophy with the club, winning 2 trophies with the club now. I feel like if Milan got that player on, he did his job, he did a good job, he won trophies, he left his mark, and now the club is getting an offer close to what they had actually bought him for, and his form has sort of consistently been on the down, especially since last season and then now this season again. I think this might actually be a bit of a happy divorce for Milan and for Fikayo Tomori, because you got everything from the player, you got performances, and you also get to sell him for pretty much the same price that you bought him for, and he gets to move back to the Premier League, where he's probably going to be looked at more by the England coach, which would improve his potential of maybe making the England squad. I think this can be a good breakup for everybody involved. Now, the player that might replace Fikayo Tomori, Antonio Silva, is the name that is being linked with Milan. This is a Benfica player. He's 21 years old, so he's a very young center back. Young center backs are always a bit of a chance, because a lot of center backs, they mature sometime around that mid-20s is when they truly learn their craft, because defending is one of the hardest things to do in the sport, and it takes a lot of experience to be able to become a top quality defender. So for Milan to replace an experienced Tomori with a young Antonio Silva, there's definitely a bit of they're taking a bit of a chance with that, But the things that I'm reading about and hearing about this player is that, you know, he's a physical player. He loves tackling, apparently. He's known for his tackles. He's right-footed. He's known to be a really good player when it comes to distribution of the ball. And if you look at the way that Milan has been making Pavlovic play, you almost get the sense that that is a quality, that is a characteristic that they do want from their defenders. It was also being said, I mean, keep in mind, the guy is still 21 years old, but a lot of media in Portugal was actually talking about how this guy is a certain future captain of the Benfica team. That tells me that even at that young age, the guy probably has some really good leadership qualities. Now, will this deal actually happen? The fact that Mateo Gabbia is currently injured, the fact that Malik Thiaw is currently been injured, Pavlovic is just starting to find his form, and if Tomori is to truly leave, I think there's a very good possibility that, I mean, I don't think there's much of a doubt that Milan has to sign a center back if they're going to let go of a center back. And for that reason, I think the Antonio Silva move to Milan, I think it's possible. Which brings us to a few departures from the club. The departure of Alvaro Morata. Lord knows what happened there. I mean, this is not something that we expected. This was truly shocking. The guy just made a move to Milan in the summer of 2024. He's already looks like he's on his way out. A lot of it comes from the fact that he's not getting along very well with Sergio Conceição. Conceição is said to be a contentious coach. He's aggressive, he gets angry. A lot of players are reportedly not liking the way that he sort of, you know, carries himself maybe, and the aggression that he puts on them. And it looks like Alvaro Morata, a guy who's pretty much won everything in football, just wasn't down for it. He just wants to go somewhere where he wants to take it a little bit easier, apparently. I think making a move to Turkey, it probably actually is not even a good thing, because even they are really, really passionate about their football. Those fans are really serious too from Galatasaray. So this is an interesting move away for him, but the fact that he's going to be moving away from the club in less than 200 days of moving here, it quite honestly just doesn't bode well for the management. That's what you have to say at the core of it, that the management really has to look at themselves as to what happened here. Now, the one point that I would make is that, you know, and I also tweeted this out, that yes, the management has to look at the fact that why these decisions were made, but I'm actually not against them moving a player that doesn't actually want to be here, or a player that is not really even delivering, because that's the fact of the matter. The fact is that Alvaro Morata has not delivered. He's not scoring the goals that we need him to score. He's a very good player when it comes to his energy. I think he drops back, he helps out in defense. I think those are really important qualities to also have. But first and foremost, you have to be able to finish. And there's so many times that in videos I've, you know, left the tag of strikers can strike, because both Tammy and Alvaro, they just are not being able to score enough goals. And keep in mind, the player also has a contract with Milan until 2028. If it's not working right now and he's only getting older, and you have to now keep him for another 3 years and pay him, what, 4.5 million euros a year? The fact that Milan might be able to cut their losses, send him on loan to Galatasaray, and then potentially sell him. I think there's an option to buy. Nicolo Schira was saying that the option actually turns into an obligation after, you know, certain parameters are reached, and it is being reported it's around 10 million euros. I think it's not a bad move. You cut your losses, you get some of your money back, you get the player off your books. Again, just like Fikayo Tomori, this might actually be a pretty happy breakup for everybody involved. And then there's a discussion of the coach, Sergio Conceição, and his issues that he's having with the players. Look, guys, this is an aggressive coach. A lot of us have talked about how Antonio Conte is the coach that should have joined Milan. He's equally crazy at times. So the fact that Milan has Sergio Conceição, I think a lot of these players' characters are going to get tested. There have been some reports saying that, oh, even his future hangs in the balance, because the Milan management is realizing that he's very aggressive and, you know, he sort of puts his foot down, and they might not actually like it, because in the past they have been accused of wanting to hire coaches that are yes men. And you can clearly tell Sergio Conceição is not one of those. He's had a public spat with the captain of the club. Now a player like Alvaro Morata, an experienced guy like him, wants to get away from this coach. And now there have been reports that Theo Hernandez and Christian Pulisic both are not very big fans of his style of coaching. All that I can say right now is that Stefano Pioli never really seemed like this type of a character. Neither did Fonseca. And I think for a lot of Milan fans, it is high time the team gets a coach that puts his foot down and makes these guys do better than what they're doing right now. It's not a coincidence that they suddenly have a coach that is relentless, and he's also extracting results where you're coming back from going down initially to win at the end, because he's infusing that relentlessness into the players and their mindset to not give up. I think the jury's still out on how good Conceição is going to be, but to get rid of him because he's an aggressive coach, that's not something I'm going to agree with. We're obviously going to discuss that in the future when more reports come out, but I want you guys to tell me in the comment section, The fact that he's being said to be a very aggressive coach, does that bother you? The fact that star players like Theo Hernandez and Christian Pulisic are reportedly, we don't know for sure, reportedly are getting a bit turned off by the coach. Does that bother you? Would you replace Conceição, or would you start replacing the weak players in the squad that are unable to play under Conceição? And there you have it, guys. That's the Rumor Real episode for today. A lot is happening in Milan's Mercato. Like this tweet, this Mercato madness is crazy. But we'll discuss more as things unfold. And as always from my side, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao. Did you know Benito Mussolini put an end to the existence of Inter Milan? And the only reason why AC Milan is called what it is because of the fascist leader? What led to the breakup of AC Milan and Inter Milan in that restaurant behind the Duomo is fascinating in itself. But what is even more fascinating